Okay. So for this book, Evolutionary Biology of Aging, which I feel like I paid too much for. But so I emailed Michael Rose and I was trying to talk about, the nature of the book. Um, so he insulted me, but I don't, it's like he insults everybody, so whatever. But then he said that like I just didn't understand the math. Um, and it might be the case that I don't, but I think that the logic I understand. So even though I feel like there's some problems with the logic, he kept insisting like, oh, you just if you do the math, then you'll understand. And um and he refused to explain anything too. That was kind of interesting. I was trying to get him to like just explain anything at all, and he just refused flat out of just like I don't need to explain myself. He didn't say that, but it just gave that feeling of like, you know, um, so here's what I'm going to have to do now. I'm going to have to derive the nature of all these equations in this book and figure out if they actually show something different than what I'm thinking the flaws in his theory have. And since he won't help with explaining the equations, I think I'm just going to do it on my own. So we're going to go through one by one for all these random equations that just get thrown into here with no examples and poor explanation. And we're going to find out if any of them actually make sense. Okay, so and of course they should, because these are all based on papers and blah blah blah. And there's a whole tree of information that you're just not of it. He didn't say that. Nobody said that, but that's the I don't know, the explanation in my head of just like, and look, I get it. Hubris is a thing, and right now I'm showing hubris on purpose. So either it's the case that I should be like, oh, you know what? Let's just get into it. Okay, so first one, we're gonna ignore this one for now because it seems like it's just exponential growth in a population size as a function of time dependent on R. It's not. We'll look at this one first because Malthusian parameter, it gets used a lot in later parts of the book. So Euler-Lotka equation. Euler-Lotka equation. All right. We're going to use Notepad++ because I think writing it out in a code way is going to be much easier to just keep track of everything. I have up here a few things, a list of givens. So what are the things that I take as an absolute truth? This is kind of formal logic sort of stuff. I like to organize it like that. So then we're positing a couple things, and this is what the book posits. What the book posits. Okay. Aging is a product of natural selection forces. The force of natural selection declines with age. And we put in here, the force of natural selection declines with age regardless of reproductive capacity. Now, this is not what the book posits. I'm gonna have to remove that. We're just gonna write what we're positing. The third one was something that emerged from the back and forth emails, is that regardless of reproductive capacity, the force of natural selection should decline with age. I disagree with this one. So we'll see whether this comes out being true given the equations down below. So Euler-Lotka equation. What do we have? What's the elements of this equation? We're going to have the variables first. And that's going to be, we'll do this. Variable is E. Now is it e to the negative zx? Oh, great. So there's z, there's x. So up here, there's these two. So Lijx. So Lijx is equal to survivorship. And see, I hate the way that people like write these things out in the sense that it's just a big string of letters, and like at a glance you can't tell which things are just like an object by themselves. So like this is one object, this is one object, right? Anyway, Mij x equals fecundity, so survivorship at age x. So x is equals age, fecundity at age x. Over the lifespan of length d, so d equals lifespan. The exponential growth in population size as a function of time depends on r. We don't have r down there. The Malthusian parameter for the genotype AIAJ is the solution z from the next equation. Z equals solution is Malthusian, it's Malthusian parameter. So Malthusian parameter provides the eventual rate of population right now. One key parameter that usually determines the eventual outcome in the selection among alleles, the Malthusian parameter. So Malthusian parameter select, which is equals to parameter determining selection among alleles. So the logic here is that we want to find out whether this predicts whether the gene is going to be incorporated into the genotype or whether not. And if it does, then that means that natural selection is going to influence genes that cause aging as a function of improving early life fecundity and whatnot. So, so that's everything. Dx. Oh no, so d is lifespan, and then the dx is so the integral from 0 to d, integral from 0 to d, dx equals area under the curve. So what we're trying to find, if we're setting the area under the curve to always equal 1, but the z value is going to get altered to set it to 1, you're trying to find what z value. Maybe Mueller 2020 will have a better explanation. The conceptual breakthroughs in evolutionary ecology. So, conceptual breakthroughs in evolutionary ecology. Read full description. DOI. No. Okay. So it's a whole other book. In my book. Buy my other book. Buy this other guy's book. God damn it. Wait a minute. Is it just Lawrence Miller about the book? Is this Kenneth Arnold, Michael Rose, John Avis? Oh man, is this just a hack job? Oh no. See, I thought I was reading through the conceptual breakthroughs in evolutionary biology book, um, and I was like, oh, this is a really well organized book. So John Avis is the editor. Oh, I see. So they just did this like in other fields, and now they're just processing it for this field. I was impressed by the structure of it. I liked the fact that it was like well laid out, like, hey, here's a paradigm, here's a breakthrough, here's what we think the importance is. But okay, so this is just a toss. Like they're just throwing stuff into the ether and trying to make money out of it. Oh, that's so lame. God damn it. All right. Somehow, like my motivation to actually go through all the math line by line is like just draining with every passing second. Um, but hey, we might as well do something on this. Okay. So let's see here. Euler-Locke equation. Let me just look this up. Euler. So structured population growth based on the age, demographic, females, and population of female births. Also, an estimation of how population is growing. Okay, this is horizontal growth, though, not vertical maintenance of um, physical continuity. This is just a modification. Okay. So it's based on survivorship and fecundity. There's no like really weird variables here. We can probably just skip this and go to the next one. It's just so disappointing. It's just a hack job. It's just like some kind of this is just a hack job. No, I just feel dumber for even interacting with this book. Okay. Let's see here. Survival. Solution R, standard Euler-Locke equation. Same thing here. Why are they adding in reproductive values obtained from the following integral? Here's what we're actually concerned with, though. Haldane, 1966, I think. Where was the where was that? I don't want to show my full email, but is it comfort? No. Let's control F for 19. Let's control F for 1966. Hamilton, 1966, I think that's the one. So, yep, this is the one. All right, so let's go here. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's go here. And what we're looking for here is section 7. Notes. Section 7. The model of a non-senescing organism. That's what we were looking for. So the absurdity of the idea that reproductive value outlines the forces of selection tending to prevent senescence may be shown by reference to a concept of a non-senescing organism. So the argument here, to just recap, is that if reproductive capacity stays flatline instead of coming down with age, then that means that there's no force of natural selection acting on any particular instance because the force continues on indefinitely. What that means is that if you shorten an organism's lifespan by like a couple of years from something, the potential loss of that organism dying at all is infinite compared to whatever amount of extra time it would have gained from a mutation here, improving its health versus causing its afterburner theory. Let me explain it this other way. Two jets are trying to fly in a race, okay? And there's one with an afterburner and there's one without an afterburner. And the afterburner jet, it can get to the end of the race faster than the non-afterburner jet, but the afterburner jet is going to destroy its own engines. So it has to go, it can only go so far before it destroys itself. And the other jet can just fly an infinite amount of distance, and it doesn't matter how long it is, it can get there. So the question is, in a vacuum, which not an atmospheric vacuum. So if the two jets race each other and there's a race that's like maybe like 100 miles and the jet with the afterburner can go 500 miles, then the 100-mile race is going to be won by the jet with the afterburner. And then let's say that the race is like 500 miles, then it's still going to be won by the jet with the afterburner. But let's say that the race is 40,000 miles, okay? The afterburner jet can't get to the end, but the other jet can. And so where am I going with this metaphor? The idea here is that if reproductive capacity is indefinite, okay, and an organism can live for like 40,000 years, then, and it produces like one offspring per year, then for every organism, the potential is 40,000. And then you have all these other forces of mortality acting on it, which is going to reduce it at various stages. But to have a mutation in an organism that lets it have, let's say, 2 times the chance of getting from age 5 to age 10, if it can live for 40,000 years, is a negligible impact on the reproductive capacity of that organism compared to the total lost capacity that it could have engaged in if it just didn't age at all, right? So the question is, why would an organism evolve the ability to age when aging is definitely going to kill it at some point, when the lost capacity just far seems to outweigh the capacity at the front end. And in order to explain this, you need to bring in other sources of mortality. Ironically, the very sources of mortality that the entire, what's it called? This book, Evolutionary Biology of Aging, spends so long railing against, which is accumulation of damage. You have to assume accumulation of damage is going to kill the organism before it has the ability, like you have, the assumption here is that accumulation of damage comes first, which I think is actually probably what's happening, is that there's accumulation of damage that will kill off anything. And then within the bounds that creates, the constraints that puts onto an organism, natural selection will alter the lifespan in a small window to optimize its the organism's ability to exist within the framework of accumulation of damage, killing off things. So this book like just lambasts accumulation of damage theories like for most of the chapters, but it is actually required in order to explain the core theory that this book is trying to posit. So Okay, so anyway, back to this. Sorry. Okay, the absurdity of the idea that reproductive value on blah, blah, blah. So they know that this is a counter argument. And the question is, did they refute the counter argument well enough here? And I don't think that they did, but let's go through and do the math and see if they did. Suppose such an organism is supposed to have immortality, which does not change with age. Okay, so unchanging. We're gonna go through this section instead. We're gonna throw out this. Well, we'll just keep it there. So let's do equation 2. What's this guy's name? Hamilton, 1966. And we will do this, and we'll do, okay. So now we're going to do a bunch of, a little smaller, like, given that one organism, unchanging mortality, chance. Okay. Supposed to have mortality does not change. In regards to reproduction, it can be assumed that so far from showing any sense in decline, fertility actually increases exponentially as the organism gets older. So we'll have, you don't need that, but they basically wanted to show, like, even in the worst case scenario, they're still correct. So we'll just write that for now. Fertility increases with age. Okay. Exponentially is not important here. No real organism can do that indefinitely, of course. For example, some fish, but this assumption prejudices the case against the evolution of senescence as strongly as possible. To give an idea of how such reproductive expansion can be supposed to occur, a Volvox-like organism, So, yeah, so it's basically they're just explaining a mathematical situation where you have some cells and they're just kind of like growing geometrically, in the sense that, like, every single cell is dividing but also sending out another, I guess you'd call that, dimension of growth through the spore thing. Such an organism both grows and expands its fertility according to geometric progression. Growth ratio is 3 per 2 cell generations. Yeah, so it's a population dynamics. It's strictly to be treated by means of series. Approximating fertility by a continuous exponential function would generally be nearly correct. Therefore, following schedules of survivorship and fertility. Okay, so 3 for age less than alpha, we'll say alpha, or age less than alpha. Oops. Survivorship undefined, fertility 0. For age greater than or equals to alpha, survivorship equals L, no, L A e to the negative u x minus a, and for fertility equals f a e to the c x minus a. Okay, don't exactly know what these mean, but I'm sure that we'll find out. Oh, here we go. All right, so given that variables, okay, C is a logarithm. C equals growth rate of fertility. FA equals fertility at the beginning of reproduction. LA equals survivorship up to age alpha. I'm going to change alpha with X because they use. Okay, so for age X, they used X. Okay, age Y, I'm going to use Y. They don't use Y. All right. E to X minus alpha. So, F L of Y, F of Y. Okay. All right. So, Y, F. Wait, FA is the fertility beginning of reproduction. Okay. LA is the survivorship up to age. Okay. Survivorship up to age Y. And U, the constant force of mortality that supervenes at least from age Y onwards. So U equals force of mortality. Force of mortality that supervenes at least from age Y onwards. For the present discussion, the course of mortality from age 0 to age alpha does not need to be defined. So we're going to say 100%. We're going to say given fertility, survivorship, 100%. Fertility, 0, less than Y. All right. Okay. From equation 1, the fundamental equation for this case is, Jesus Christ, or, all right, this is fine. This is all fine. This is fine. It is clear that it's possible to choose M sufficiently large to make the integral converge. And therefore that a value exists, which is the solution of the equation, thus integrating and evaluating the limits. So I don't understand this part right here. What they're doing. So I guess that's the first step. For the present discussion of the course of mortality, from equation 1, the fundamental equation for this case is this. So let's say, and that the thing is that they, with all these variables, they never describe what the variables might look like. There's no examples ever given on these kinds of things. Why would they try to explain themselves like that? That only gives them a chance to be wrong. So we're gonna have to try to figure out what these numbers are supposed to be. Like some of them are probably ranges between 0 and 1. Some of them might be greater than 1. And because they haven't described any of these, we're gonna have to figure it out on our own. So so okay, so the equations that we're looking for, let's assume that they like that these people are smart and that they simplified this correctly. So maybe to yield real root M for any developed approximation. So what is M here? M is the Malthusian parameter. Not quite explained, but I think that's what it is. So if we look at that zx thing, this is the same structure as the Euler-Lotka equation. So we're just going to say that the M, oh, great. Testing. Hopefully you can still hear. Okay. M equals Malthusian parameter. Okay, so then y is equal to age. Age. All right. Okay. Let's put in numbers. Oh, are they Jesus Christ. So from foreign calculations, there's a C here now. Oh, growth rate of fertility. Foreign cancellation. C is positive. Has descending wall, V has a form of an ascending one, provided C is positive. The expansion of V in this case simply reflects the design from later and later. Age group finding is still not only still good as new and viable, but at the same time, it's only more and more enlarged reproductive. So okay. For LA and from the points, like at what point, where's the actual equation? One of the most extreme may positive mortality at 0 at all ages, and C is positive. We have this. Okay. It keeps going. Wait. Oh, here's 8. So the final, okay. This is okay. So from the point of view of biology, in range of cases where it's possible to find a root and to satisfy the equation, wide enough one of the most extreme maybe this mortality is 0 at all ages, and C is positive. What if we have C as just 1? Man, they just don't explain like it would be nice to just see one example, just so that you can know like what when they say M minus C, because if C is 1, that would be like in my head fertility, if 1 would be just a like normal fertility, and then less than 1 is lower than necessary fertility to replace yourself, and greater than 1 would be higher than fertility to replace yourself. But if they're doing an M minus C, that's a -1 there. All right, you know what? We're just gonna start plugging in numbers and see what happens. So I assume that they took this whole series of equations and LA FA equals M minus C, and that this is like what came out of it. So equation E to the negative my ly fy equals M minus C. So we're going to turn these into objects. Oops. Equals, all right. E to the negative my. Okay, so E to the negative M. Let's say the age is, I don't know, 10 times, so that's 10M times ly, which is survivorship up to age y, which is 100%. So we'll say 1. Times fertility, we'll say that that's 1 as well. Because the fertility is going to be 1. And then m minus growth rate of fertility. Growth rate of fertility, maybe we'll put 0 there. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that gives us e to the 10 m equals m, right? So what's e to the, how do you cancel out e? Canceling out e. E is fx. Oh, sorry, Google. Canceling out e. So yeah, I know I'm not good at math, which is why it'd be nice if somebody else explained this, but since nobody else will, that's fine. Okay, so we do log natural of each side. All right. So ln cancels out e. I remember that from AP Calc. Okay, so 10m equals ln of m. M equals, what do we get? So divide each side by m. So that's 10 equals ln of m divided by m. At the end of this, I don't even know what the Malthusian parameter is supposed to be. Like, is a greater than 1 indicative of what's it called, success, or is less than 1 success? Like, what? This is lame. This is super lame. Okay, we have using there's a real root positive for m. The retains its descending for positive root for m, and that WA retains its descending form. There's multiple layers here. Number 1, are the equations really accurate? Number 2, even if the equations are accurate, has he interpreted them correctly? Number 3, there's just so much things that I'm not like aware of. It'd be nice to know those things. So I don't have good background in log natural math, but maybe Wolfram. Ln of a natural logarithm. Okay, so root a equals 1, derivatives, fine. I don't know what this is all supposed to mean. Maybe we work backwards from what we want to see. Okay. We want to see that. Let's put the layman's example in here. The layman's example is organism A. is doesn't age. No fertility decrease with time. Organism B ages. No fertility decrease with time. All right. What we want to see is, does organism A outcompete organism B? Or I guess we should ask the inverse, because that's what we really want to know. What they're claiming is that an organism B outcompetes an organism A, right? So layman's example is organism A lives, let's say, 40,000 years, produces, oh yeah, one offspring produced per year by both, zero mortality rate. So organism A lives 40,000 years and produces 40,000 offspring. We'll cap it at 40,000 because it's an absurdly large number in terms of lifespan, and it'll get the point across. But essentially, this is supposed to be infinite. Organism B lives 5 years, produces 5 offspring. We have to give time for development, so we'll put 4 and we'll put 39,000. We'll put 40,000 and we'll say 40,001 years. Okay. All right. So how does organism B outcompete without predation, without mortality being involved? So let's say that there's, we'll go year by year. Year 1, we're gonna go through basically the dumb person's version of the geometric growth that's being described here, because I don't know how to solve for these equations apparently. Year 1, there's going to be 5 of A, 5 of B. Year 2, those 5 of A are going to produce 5 more. Year 2, five of A. Damn it. We're gonna have to designate between the undeveloped and the developed ones. 5 of AU, BU. Okay. 5 of A, 5 of B. And then let's say that they do 5 of AU, 5 of BU. See, if I wrote down an equation, I could probably get it to spit out the answer, but we're going to go through this like an idiot, just to make sure that we understand. 5 of, so that's going to be 10 of A, because all of the AUs turn into A's the next year. 10 of B's, 10 of AU, 10 of BU. Right? The A's will turn into, the AUs turn into A's, and then everything reproduces. So then it turns, okay. This is pretty simple, year 4. 20 of A, 20 of B, 20 of AU, 20 of BU. Year 5, 40 of A, 40 of B, 40 of AU, 40 of BU. Okay, here's where it starts to get tricky, because now we take the year up here and we subtract BUs because they're dying from aging. So year 6, oh, whoops. Let's put these as equals. So we've got 80 of A, 80 minus 5 of B, so that's 75B. And then we have 75 BU. Oh, 80 of AU, 75 of BU. Year 7 is going to be 160 of A, 150 of B, minus these 5 have already died. So these 5, oh, sorry, these 5 have already died. So these 5, so we're minusing BU. Okay, so we're minusing the BU value. Okay, so that's gonna be this column. Okay, so 150 of B minus 5 again. So that's 145 of B. Then they all both reproduce. So 160 AU of AU, 145 of BU. Right? Each of them produces. So, and that's going to continue on. So we can see that A is out reproducing B, right? So why would anything, like, you understand? So if the mortality is 0 across all ages, we didn't even need C to be positive. We just kept C as a, but if C was positive, let's say that this number here, these AU numbers were greater than these numbers over here, that would only exacerbate the problem. And you know what? Since I have to put my money where my mouth is, we're gonna create C of positive. So for every 5, they're gonna produce 2. So they're gonna be doing 10, 10, and 10. Because I've been lambasting him for not doing examples, or these guys for not putting in examples for all of the situations that they talk about. So if I don't do that, then it's not good. So this is 40. So we're gonna have to redo all this math now. So that's 15. Oops. It's 15. So 5 of a 5. We start with 5 of each. Then we have 5 matured ones, 10 offspring. So that combined together, that's 15. And then they're going to create 2 for 1. So that's 30 and 30. And then here we're going to do, so then we have 45 and 45. And we have 90 for each of these. And then we're going to have 90 plus 45, that's 135. 135, and that's times 2, so that's 270. 270. Okay, and then what we're going to do is okay, so now we have to actually think. So it's going to be 270 plus 135, that's 305 of A. And then we're going to do 270, so it's 305 of B minus the one, this, so that's 300 of B, right? 300 of B. Which means 305 of AU, sorry, 610 of AU, and we're going to have 600 of BU. Now we have 915 of A, and we're going to have 900 of B, but minus 10, so that's 890 of B. Nine. That's really interesting. Okay, so sorry, I'm getting distracted a little bit here. And I'll tell you why in a second. 1830 of AU 6. So 890 times 2 is 900 times 1800 minus 20. So that's 1780 of BU. 1800 minus 20. Yeah, that's right. So proportionally, oh, it should grow, but if it doesn't, what if he sorry, let's see here. So I expected the differences to be much greater proportionally. But what if they're not? What if increasing the reproductive rate, let's go one more layer out first. Because if a reproductive rate of 1 is like flat reproductive rate is yielding the greatest difference between the two, then by increasing that number to being like an absurdly high exponential curve of reproductive capacity, they might have not seen what they should have seen. So I don't think that's the case. I think it's okay. Let's just go through a couple layers more for this. So 160 plus 160 is 320. 320 of A. 145 times 2, that's 300 minus 10, that's 290 minus 3 is just 10, so that's 280 of B. So that's another 320 of U and 280 of BU, which gives, oops, so the differential is, we'll say 40 over 320. We'll use it as a ratio of the population of A, which is 4 over 32, which is 2 over 16, which is 2 over 16, which is 1 over 8. So there's an 1/8 difference between the population of BU and AU at this point, or sorry, of B and A, they're the same. So let's take a look at year 8 for here. So 1830 plus 915, we're going to use calc. 915 plus 1830, 2745. 2745 of A. 1780 plus 890. That's, and then minus what's year 3? 30 minus 30 equals 2640. 2640 of B. And then we'll just go, sorry, 2745 times 2 equals 5490. 490 and 2640. 2640 times 2, 5280. 5280 EU. So 2745 minus 2640 divided by 2745 equals differential is 0.038. So that's 3.8% or 3.8% represented as a fraction. That's about 4/100 roughly. That's 4 divided by 100. Sorry, what am I doing? 4/100 is 2/50 is 1/25, or roughly 1/25. Okay. What? So the higher the fertility rate, the lower the differential between these two groups becomes. And it can never be population of B can never be greater than A, no matter what the fertility rate is. But there is a sufficiently, if you have high enough fertility rates, the death from senescence becomes negligible. It can never be better than non-aging, that's for sure, with a 0 mortality rate, right? Like A is always like mathematically has to be greater than B, because we're only ever subtracting the values of B. We're not ever subtracting the values of A. So what they mean here is that once you take in mortality, let's say that you have a standard mortality, a mortality rate that can't be avoided. Let's say that. Okay, all right. So the mortality from, let's do another case study. And you know what? I'm sure that you can do equations and get this answer within a few seconds, but nobody's explaining this shit to me. So okay, so from a layman's perspective, I don't think this is correct. Mortality is 0 and C is positive. You still wouldn't see an outcompeting. So I think that this here negates where was the positing? Negates this question. Organism B does not outcompete organism A if there is no fertility decrease. It doesn't matter what if the fertility is the same for both, it doesn't matter. One offspring produced per year by both, 0 mortality rate. So with these givens, given and given 0 mortality rate. So I would say since A is greater than B, organism A outcompetes organism B. Okay. But ah, okay. Great. The speakers that keep turning off. Okay. He's okay, so but what if there is I can totally imagine I'll do this later. I think this video is long enough, but I can totally imagine that a mortality rate of anything like since high fertility rates give us close the gap, which is interesting, between the populations, the relative populations of A and B. The absolute is way larger, right? Like the absolute values between these two. This is an absolute value of 40, and this is an absolute value of close to 100, 105. So the absolutes get larger, the relative differences get smaller, which means that as fertility gets higher and higher, then you shouldn't see as much of a difference between the two species, which means that any sort of force of mortality that comes into play will overshadow the force of aging in an environment where there's no predation, no, yeah. So in an environment, in such an environment where there's another force of mortality, um, you'll get the force of that mortality overshadowing senescence forces. But okay, so I understand that part and I agree with it. But this part, I think that this is not correct. I think that this is incorrect from what I've seen. If you want to try to use this, I don't know, just show like I need to see the numbers like for year to year of like how these this section justifies itself because I don't see it. Cool. Okay, this is good. We've got some interesting information here. That's cool. All right.